Welcome back to another LinuxGameCast Weekly, the show that covers the latest Linux gaming news, reviews, how-tos, and most importantly, whatever the hell else we come up with. This week, Steam plays Secret Santa with your personal information, and Super Tux Kart mixed with the update after 15 years.
Hey, listen! There's a brand new reason to hurl your Wiimote through a wall. And Larian causes us to lose money, because there's no way in hell we would have won that bet.
Steamy VR. Plug it in and strap it to your face as soon as you build a new computer that can keep up with it. And the most ludicrous game of 2013 gets the most heartbreaking port of 2015.
I'm Ben Stone here, switching the bits, joined every week by Team Canadian Podcast, Master Spell.
I'm back from the dead, bitches!
You know, whatever place Vermont. It's not Pedro. Because you see, Pedro had to go visit his family, and he couldn't be on the show.
That here.
So Mike visited his family, brought his microphone and recording equipment with him, and together with Chat Realm Dynamic, we formed that little bit of a cocaine Voltron. Before we get started, we'd like to see what's going on in each other's life organs. Gentlemen, I'm going to start because I'm genuinely thinking about noping the Uverse, because I'm tired of dealing with their support on the Twitters, which is infinitely better than trying to call a drone at AT&T Cares, and might be switching over to the cables because it's roughly the same price for a business class SLA and twice the bandwidth, but I still don't know what the upload speed's going to be. What's up, J-Baby?
Well, aside from, vomiting and puking my guts out last week, I went and saw Star Wars, and I liked it so much that I went and saw it again, and I'm excited about that, but we can't talk about it, because spoilers!
And I'm in a different state. I went on vacation, they were like, hey, we need a co-host. I was like, yeah, there's broadband all over this place, so why not? Bring it on.
Well, one thing we do bring every week, J-Baby, is the horse.
Yeah, the horse is getting a bit transparent. We're able to see some stuff that it would have rather us not see, and it's our Steam
update of the week.
All right, Steam security issues exposes users' personal information. Not really, kind of really, maybe, sort of. I don't know. I mean, I kind of think this was a bit blown out of proportion. What kind of went down, this was yesterday, and a lot of people were logging in, including myself, and I never saw anyone else's profile from the Steam client, but if I was checking the Steam store, it would be in some moon language that I didn't even know. But a lot of people were reporting that they were in other people's accounts. Legit, I've seen too many screenshots to deny any of that, and if they had credit card info, you couldn't really get that. Maybe the last 4 digits, same way with your mobile numbers. But the one thing they could get was your account balance, username, and home address if you had that listed along with anything else. I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, you really can't. I mean, it's not really a hack, and you cannot blame the 300 hours that you've spent in Hoonipop on someone else, is kind of all I'm saying.
This was due to a caching server gone rogue. It was, I guess it wasn't just respecting sessions and identifying sessions based on cookies people had. I don't know. I was not hit by this at all, because I think I logged in after Divinity dropped to buy that, and afterwards I haven't touched Steam at all, aside from playing KOTOR.
I didn't hear about it either until completely afterwards, and I've been traveling, so I hadn't been signed into Steam. I'm hoping maybe that nothing affects me, but at least it was just random cache stuff getting returned. It wasn't like they found a way to view particular users' info or anything like that. It was just kind of a random chance you'd maybe see somebody else's stuff. So they couldn't run through a list and grab everybody's info, or target a specific person and grab their info. It's kind of a security exploit, but it's not that bad. It's certainly not good.
Yeah, and they resolved it in a couple hours too, so there was that. But yeah, I guess that's talked to death about. Up next, Empty, are you getting some vibes from HTC?
Oh, I'm getting some vibes from the Vive, aka the Steamy VR. Basically, HTC has announced that they've got a big breakthrough that they're going to premiere at CES in a couple weeks here. I've heard rumors that the breakthrough is hand and finger tracking, since they've already got the motion sensing hand controllers. I think finger tracking is probably a fairly reasonable thing for them to kind of debut. How would you use that in a video game? I don't really know, but it's
there's like Surgeon Simulator. It would have to be a game specifically designed to take advantage of something like that. And what do you call it? They're saying that this is going to push back the Steam VR a little bit. It's going to be a bit more expensive, but their reasoning is that because it's a more complete product, you're going to be more satisfied than some half-assed product that you're going to be replacing in a couple months anyways when they drop the new sauce. One of the...
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, one of the interesting things that the article brings up is Audi is in talks with HTC to use Steam VR for test drives. And we were talking about Tesla looking for Unreal Engine 4 devs earlier with their experience in VR. So this seems to be a progression of the VR tech. And I've always been of the opinion that it's not going to really take off in gaming, but it has a lot of other applications in other fields. And that's where VR is going to make it
definitely
sticky.
When I am hearing about things like, oh, this is a breakthrough, and my first response is, unless that breakthrough is not having to wear shite on my damn head organ, I'm not really interested. This is 3D TV electric boogaloo. As all this is for me. And to the point that you made, I was like, well, you can have if I'm driving all the way to the dealership to test drive a car, and they're like, oh, sit here and play with the VR. I was like, F that noise, put me in the real thing, let's go to the liquor store, preferably drive through.
Well, you can go to the lovingly rendered liquor store in Grid Auto Sport with your Steam VR. I don't know. Yeah, I agree. Maybe we need to replace everything until it's just a needle you can jam in the back of your head, a la the Matrix.
Wherever it requires jamming, I am in. I am sold. Unlike then, I think this is going to be awesome for gaming. And so is my new computer that I'm going to have to build to be able to run this thing. But,
Oh, yeah.
C'est la vie.
I don't know.
Well, it's like dual 2K screens.
Everyone's talking about all this. It's going to be. We really need to talk about the white chainsaw in the room, because its price. I mean, let's say this headset comes out at about $350, and these Magical Moon hand controllers. Let's lowball that and say it's another $150. Then you're going to need at least a 970 GPU attached to a proper sized room organ in order to have any fun with this. I see this being an extremely niche item. I don't know. I mean, I want to like it. I do, Brad, but I'm just not feeling it.
I don't know. PC's always been sort of the realm of sort of taking your experience to the overkill. I mean, look at the setups that people have for Grid or for MechWarrior. That's not something you would see in like your Nintendo or your Xbox space.
And it's like I said, I thought it was going to be like steering wheels. I mean, you're going to know at least one person who has that type of setup.
And I mean, there's some interesting gameplay that can arise from VR. I mean, keep talking and no one explodes is the prime contender here. But
well, how about just while you're driving a car and you can glance around and look out your side windows and stuff. Just by moving your head instead of having to, use the thumbstick.
We're going back to the racing wheel thing there, which I agree with Ben about. So I don't know. Will it make the big splash? Well, we'll have to wait and see.
But I mean, definitely, if you had that type of mobility, you could see the snowballs falling, couldn't you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. So we said it wouldn't happen. We said it wouldn't happen for a very long time. And Larian just had to go and prove us wrong. This is Divinity Original Sin Enhanced Edition. Some backstory behind this is back when Dragon Commander came out, people were asking, hey, are we going to get a Linux version of this? Oh, yeah, sure. And then when Original Sin got announced, hey, what's going on with Dragon Commander? Oh, well, we're working on a new engine, and we'll get that supporting Linux. And then we'll port Original Sin, and maybe we'll backport Dragon Commander as a Enhanced Edition. And then they announced the Enhanced Edition, still no Linux support. They started a crowdfunding campaign for Divinity Original Sin 2 without even completing the Linux port, but now they have gotten it off the shelf. I actually took the Pepsi Challenge. I picked this up back when it was on sale for $30 as opposed to $20, or it was like $45 or something like that.
$39.99 wet stinky cash is currently 33% off. What is it, Jordan? I've never heard about it.
Well, it's an RPG. It is turn-based. The interface kind of reminds me of Shadowrun Returns, except it's a lot more granular in what you can do. It actually runs pretty well. I got consistently over 50 FPS at 4K, was getting like 190 some odd FPS at 1080p. So it runs pretty well. Good on them for that. It does start off in an itty-bitty 720p window, which is a bit odd, but and once you change the resolution, it fucks up and you have to actually restart the game for images to actually appear. But beyond that, the only issue I ran into was if you try to exit the game through the game, it just fucking crashes and it fucks up your desktop resolution because it does that thing where it actually X-renders your screen as opposed to just scaling an image, which I found kind of annoying. But beyond that, I mean, the performance is there. It's fully native. They ported the engine. So we're going to see probably Divinity Original Sin 2 come out to Linux in a I say reasonable, but they're probably going to take another 2 years to get it out once after the Windows version has dropped.
Thoughts?
Well, is it too little too late? I don't know. Maybe if they can get some more games out of this engine, it'll be good. And, it's always nice when they keep their promises and release on the platforms that they, said they were going to.
Well, then again, that also happened this week with something we knew that was coming, but we weren't necessarily happy with the way it showed up.
Saints Row 4. Our latest Eon port definitely made its appearance on SteamOS.
Off. That's how you can always spot it.
That's an Eon port, all right.
Move those units.
Well, it runs. It runs inconsistently and has a tendency to just vanish and leave you at your desktop wondering where your game went. It has some controller issues where, your jump button gets stuck down. Good ways to take you out of immersion when you're actually starting to get into a game and enjoy it for its completely ludicrous plot and absolutely hilarious sense of humor and dialogue. I tried it for a while. I
love Saints Row ever since I played Saints Row 2 on the Xbox 360. That game, this was about the time that GTA 4 came out and they were trying to get all serious. And you take Saints Row 2 as a contrast and it's like, holy shit, you're fucking running around beating people to death. You dump battery acid on Worf's face and then he just gets all pissed off until you go kill him and then you become the president. And Saints Row the 3rd had a similar plot. Saints Row the 4th, you are the president. The big pre-order thing was you could pre-order a big floppy dildo and beat people to death with it. It's amazing. I love it. But then Deep Silver pulls this shit, man, and it's an Eon port. I actually haven't given it a shot yet. I have a reasonably powerful Intel system, so I should actually have the fewest number of issues out of everyone here who plays it.
Right.
But yeah, supposedly.
Your quad-core Skyleak. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the parts are good. They're just arranged badly.
Oh, right.
You're not using. Yeah.
I was kind of excited about this until because there was a little bit of hubbub, and I was like, well, the earlier ones are going to be Eon ports, but the Saints Row 4 that'll be native. Bzz, nope. And that just goes to show. I mean, don't pull the trigger on that noise unless you know. Eon's a stopgap measure. It's kind of like they took Toggle and was like, let's fuck that up a little bit more and make it more crashy and double system requirements and
then people are going to say, well, you can use Eon as like a compile time wrapper, or you can use it as a binary wrapper. We don't know what this is yet. And that's really the problem with Eon ports is that they'll ship it and you never quite know if it's native or if they're just using the DirectX translation capabilities. And they're not going to tell you because that would ruin the mystery of Eon.
Well, hit me, baby.
People might start expecting things from it.
Because it's half off Hatred. You remember that game that was kind of like boring as bowls, but it was so...
I hate it.
It was so filled with controversy because you shooting people and cops and all that. I don't know. Anyway, mostly positive somehow. I think this was...
Asymmetric Unity game. Come on.
Well, no, it wasn't Unity. It was Unreal Engine 4. Yeah, so that's definitely the thing. It's currently half off, price to sell at $9.99. A lot of people seem to like it, and what you got to think about it, you're like, Vin, but it doesn't say. If you go into their forum organs on the Steam page, there's a Linux thing, there's a Linux beta thing you can log into, and it works. And this game does have the added benefit of being boring as arse, well within the 2-hour refund window, so you shouldn't really have to worry about that. But yeah, I never understood, like, oh, it's isometric, run around and shoot people. Oh, I'm so offended. And Steam's like, we're going to pull it. And it's like, have you played Shadows of Mordor? You basically shit down orcs' necks after you rip their head off. And you're telling me this is like more violent than that? What? No.
It's like any of the Batman games. No killing. I'm just going to shatter this guy's spine in 8 places, crush his skull, and make him drink through a tube for the rest of his life. Oh, yeah, it's totally better than killing people. Rated T for teen.
Or the Call of Duty, where you go through the airport with an assault rifle, mowing down all of the passengers just standing around. This game is just pure controversy. That's it.
Or that dating sim where you're a schoolgirl who runs around murdering other schoolgirls in cold blood to get a boy.
Wait, what's that game called?
Right.
Oh,
you gotta tell me what that's called. I need to write that down right now.
Oh no! Someone in chat realm get that for me, because you know what I'm talking about. The name of it escapes me, but it's totally a game you can buy on Steam. It's not on Linux though. I don't think.
That's in the betas. I mean, check it out if you want. I am just not going to waste coin on it. I mean, if they send us a copy, we might look at it, but yeah, that's a thing. But
hashtag no lives matter. Speaking of life being inexpensive, this is a game where you play it either as a baby trying to murder yourself or a parent who's trying desperately to stop that. This is Who's Your Daddy? So I was actually surprised that it came out for Linux, because this is an early access game. I saw a Let's Play of this on Game Grumps featuring Ninja Brian from Ninja Sex Party. And oh my god, this game is fucking hysterical. You crawl around, you eat batteries, you try and drown yourself. And
don't forget, jump in the oven. You can jump in the oven.
Oh, what the hell?
You can jump in the oven. Or stick forks into wall outlets. That's the other thing you can do. And as the baby, you're trying to murder yourself. As the dad, you're trying to stop that. And that's the game. This is literally it.
Now, that is some brilliant asymmetrical multiplayer design right there. That is by far the best asymmetrical multiplayer I've heard of since the Friday the 13th game, where one team is Jason, one person by themselves, and the other one is the camp counselors. This is genius. This is genius.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Except the Friday the 13th one, like any amount of thought you can, and like 4 people, you could easily take out Jason. It's just no issue. But yeah, no, this is out for Linux. You can pick this up. It is early access, so it's going under heavy development, but it is priced to sell at $5. So
I mean,
the devs are constantly refining and adding features. It's buggy as fuck. If you crouch as the adult from the baby's perspective, your legs just retract into your torso. It's fucked up. I love it. Check it out.
Okay, you've just sold this game to me. I'm literally going to pick it up as soon as I can.
All right. Then these guys owe me some money. But, speaking of owing us money, we have some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people who give us money every week and expect a podcast in return. But it is our Patreon page, patreon.com/LinuxGameCast. It's our crowdfunding nonsense that allows us to bankroll this on you so that we don't have to incur massive server costs. And we got some new donors this week. We got Monster Cameron and Jonas R, who upped their donations. We also got Johnny T, Mir, and Chris O as new donors. And it's brilliant. Did you guys mention the updated goal for Linux Gamecast Weekly Daily Wednesday last week?
We've already hit it. We just got to work on it now, Brad.
Oh shit, son! Yeah, so we hit 145. We hit Linux Gamecast Weekly Daily Wednesday. So now we just have to extract Pedro from his parents' house, and we can get started on that.
No, I mean, it's kind of awesome. I mean, especially during the holidays. Thanks, you guys, for helping us out. I mean, that's like I said, we know it's a pain in the ass to go there. It's like, 5 cents, 20 cents a month. I'll do that. Then you're like, I got to register now. I know it's a huge pain in the ass, but for those of you that do, I mean, this is why we're like Boxing day after Santa Claus shows up, #Futurama. We're like, screw it. We're still going to go live. We're going to do a live show, and we're going to do it for you lot because you are the reason we are here, and we do appreciate that. It is mental and brilliant.
Indeed. So up next, we get talking about Intel IGPs, and AMD just can't meet a deadline. Dear God. It's like they're in a race with Quap and losing. It's fucked up. Tune in. Now that we're done peeking at the horse's naughty bits, let's screech on over to the regular news. And oh boy, my nipples are feeling especially smooth. It's because Intel IGPs now have tessellation. They are very, 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 very close to having full OpenGL 4.3 compliance in Mesa. However, this will only take effect if you have an Ivy Bridge Intel GPU or newer. So if it's an i7 20 something 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 or an i3 20 something something or above, you're good. Anything beyond that, the Sandy Bridges, the first gen iSeries, not happening. But I mean, it's good progress on the open source drivers because, again, there are a lot of people with cheap computers, cheap laptops who use Linux to get the most out of their hardware, and they want to play some games. And for the longest time, it was very, very difficult on an Intel IGP. But as more and more of these OpenGL extensions come in, your Intel IGP becomes more and more capable, especially if you have one of those fancy schmancy Iris GPUs that has garbage support under Linux.
I don't know, Brad. I'm definitely with you on all that. I mean, with all the AMD, Nvidia fanboyism BS, it's nice to see that little plucky company, Intel, just chugging along, doing all
that multi-billion-dollar entity. So
yeah, they're practically indie, man. Isn't that right, MT?
Oh yeah, Intel is, they're the underdogs in so many things. Mm-hmm. I'm just not sure that adding more triangles on what is already a fairly weak GPU is really the best way to get maximum performance. But if it's required for OpenGL compliance, then bring it on.
And I mean, you're going to be playing these games on low, and really, even when Vulkan comes out, you're not going to be seeing the massive, massive increases that you're hoping for. It's just a little easier because it's a little easier on the hardware because everything is threaded like crazy. But AMD was going to send their shit to the shit store, but they decided they are feeling a little constipated.
Oh man, Nvidia, stop it, dick me. I mean, fucking seriously, this is from, what is it, 2 clicks?
He's a CSGO streamer primarily.
Okay, that's basically what it is. He's got his own little thing. He's talking about physics, tessellation, which 3-hair works, Nvidia game works, AMD competing technologies, 3D vision, G-Sync, shadow play, blah, blah, blah. Let me summarize this for you. I mean, this entire argument is boiled down to this. It's not like AMD is open sourcing all the things out of kindness, Brad. Nay. They're hella desperate to gain more than that 20% of market share. Now, a lot of that was ATI constantly fucking up. And they're like, that's a horrible fucking company. Let's buy some of that. And the open source tools that they're throwing out there right now are the same bits that game developers didn't want to use in the first place. And get this is kind of funny. Prepare yourself. Some of the glue stick munching troglodytes out there think that Nvidia, I mean, this is the crux of his argument, that Nvidia should invest all this money in R&D using the Nvidia magical free money tree that they apparently have and just give it to AMD. I mean, I really don't think this child has had a class in finance, J-Baby.
All right, so let's roll it back a little. The crux of this guy's complaint in this 12-minute long video he has is that AMD historically attempts to be more standards compliant and tries to push open standards as opposed to Nvidia, which will constantly push its own proprietary implementation. Now, there is something of a valid point to this. When you have a proprietary standard in place, you're causing a fracture in the ecosystem. You have option A, which will run on everything, and then you get option B, which is really hyper optimized, will run on this one subset of your hardware, but on that hardware it is magic. It is black box. It is tons of millions of dollars in R&D into getting this down pat on this particular bit of hardware. And now I'm always one who champions open standards because I feel that these proprietary standards and closing off code ultimately harms the software ecosystem because everyone's working in their own little corner. And when it comes time to actually put something together that runs as a general purpose application on on various heterogeneous systems, you start running into issues. You can see this today with DirectX and OpenGL. Still, AMD. The problem with this guy's argument is while AMD is pushing an open standard, they're not really doing this out of the kindness of their heart or any sort of like social responsibility. They're doing it because they can't afford to invest the same level of time and effort and finance into developing their own proprietary standard that people will adopt. So they're going the other route. They're saying, well, ours is standards compliant, so you can use it with everything and it runs on everything, and that's great and all, except it's complicated. It doesn't work. It doesn't work reliably. And but by saying this is open source, what they're really saying is we are going to offload any effort that we can put into polishing this product and putting it out there onto the developers. You have the source, you have the standard, you can just have at and do whatever you want, and any problems you run into, you can fix on your own, which again creates the problem of you have different people with different solutions to the same problems, and you create this fractured space in software.
I mean, it's definitely fractured. I mean, one of the things that kind of blew my mind, Oregon, is like reading through those comments. Like, yeah, open source, and that's the thing. And I was like, oh, right. Now, I'm admittedly a little bit of an open source zealot, but I understand. I'm not going to start preaching open source because guess what? I'm playing games on Steam, not necessarily open source. And guess what? I'm playing it with an AMD CPU, not open source. Maybe you're playing it with an Intel CPU, not open source. The only person that can go full metal Stallman, well, guess what? He has a beard and katanas, and his name's Richard Stallman. But outside of that business, at the end of the day, I kindly think there is nine issue with with Linux. I mean, it's completely open source. The OpenGL graphics stacks, AMD sucks on Linux because AMD sucks on Linux on purpose. Empty, you got some thoughts on this, though, son?
Yeah, well, first of all, I definitely thought that guy played a little bit fast and loose with his open source versus just kind of open standard type thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that was one thing I did want to bring up, but go on.
Open source is full access to the source code, and open standard is just a spec. And quite frankly, open standards are our way out of this mess. It's the Vulkan resolving the OpenGL versus DirectX fight. It's OpenCL fighting the CUDA versus whatever AMD's solution for that was.
HSAC or whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah, exactly. And really, one standard, hopefully an open one, has to reach critical mass where everybody will start using it. Otherwise, we end up with Nvidia Hairworks giving, silky, smooth, flowing hair on Nvidia chips and nowhere else. That's no fun. That's no fun at all.
But see, the issue with that, though, is one entirely of timing. CUDA took precedence in the parallel compute space because OpenCL wasn't really there when people started focusing on this. How do we solve problems with massive parallel processors as opposed to a single task processor? And so the hope is with Vulkan or another open standard is that this comes out in sort of this transitionary time when we go between one proprietary standard and another, saying, hey, here's our step 1.5 that accomplishes much of what step 1 in the proprietary space does.
Right.
But can also be applied to everyone else. And that's why we're pushing Vulkan so hard. That's why a lot of developers are pushing Vulkan so hard. In the space of HSC versus CUDA, that fight's already lost. In the case of Hairworks versus TressFX, that fight is already lost because Nvidia was there first with their proprietary solution, and they were there with the money to the developer saying, we will provide you the resources and the training and the optimization and the code base to do that, where AMD's like, well, here's the code, here's the spec, you guys just do stuff with it because we want to work on our own.
Something that really did puzzle me just a little bit. I'm not making this up. One of my favorite gingers from PC Per,
Herr Schroot.
Also, Josh is on the show, and we were doing some speed racism with the other week. But what he said verbatim is the scuttlebutt behind the Kronos' group, the guys working with the Vulkan API, and that standard. The big hang-up right now is AMD kind of trying to renege on the licensing of some of their mantle technologies. I was like, motherfucker, really?
And you get them trying to play both sides of the coin. Especially last week, you guys were talking about their path to open source, and that was it. It's like, well, we're going to provide this really crappy closed source solution with the intent that we're going to eventually open source it, because then we don't have to fix it. You can fix it. And that's basically what this argument boils down to is open standards are great and all, but everyone has to be on board and you need to have paid resources in place to actually work on it. That's how the Linux kernel came about. It's not actually just hobbyists. There are people from like Infinisource, Dell, IBM, Red Hat, professional software houses contributing to the open source and open standard because they know that they benefit from it and they need to invest money, capital, effort, and like manpower to move it in the direction that they want. And that, yeah.
Well, it's absolutely true. You do need to get a community going around the open standard or it's worthless. And, AMD, if they're going to try to pull this one off, they really need to push and they really need to find a way to make it happen. I have no idea what that way is, but they need to find it. Otherwise, it's going to be hairworks for everybody.
Well, it's not going to happen anytime soon if they can't actually get some hardware to market. So this is from WCC Tech, and we have a lovely little picture of Vermis Sue with the Fury X2, and it's been delayed. They're pushing it back to later, I believe in 2016. It was did they give a quarter? I don't recall. The Q415. Yeah, so that. Or pushback from Q4 15 to Q2 2016. So much like Zen, they're pushing this back. And this is not really a good position for AMD to be in. Because if they want people to adopt these open standards that we're talking about, we need to have the hardware out there for people to use. And this doesn't seem to be happening at all.
I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I'm upset because I would love some competition in like the discrete graphics. I mean, I'd love AMD to pull a summer and get its shit together. And like my next purchasing decision, it was like, oh, look, I have two options. I was like, nope, I'm sorry. I buy what works 99% of the time. But with the Fury X2, they missed a brilliant marketing thing. They should have called it the Furry Tails. Am I wrong, Empty?
You are not wrong at all. AMD is really good at screwing things up.
Yeah, and they're really miles behind. That's a Sonic joke for people who. Never mind. I maybe shouldn't have dropped that card. I mean, it seems that AMD's cup lately has been overflowing with promises that they're not actually delivering on. Zen is going to be amazing, but we're pushing it back to Q4 2016. Fury X2, it's going to beat the shit out of the Titan, except we're pushing it back so that Nvidia has time to release another GPU that will curb stomp the Fury X2. It doesn't really look like they have all their ducks in a row, and they're going to continue to suffer because of it.
I mean, it's definitely a thing. I mean, you had to go, which I cannot fault you at all, with a Skylake because you were running a Thuban AMD. And I mean, it was just not there. I'm a little better off with the 8150 because of better instruction set and AMD, and AMD is still rocking the old school hipster.
I am still on the Thuban without the SSSSC3.
Right.
Constantly biting me in the butt.
Yeah, and both of us were like, come on, give us a 16-core and a reasonable fucking package, thermal envelope, and just make it, it's going to be great, but we never know, I guess. But maybe flippity jibbity do.
FNA, you might have heard of it. It is the complete redo of the XNA 4.0 spec that brought us such wonderful games as Dust and Elysian Tale, Fat Princess, Castle Crashers, Adventures of Shuggy. Well, FNA has released its 1.0, or he's actually calling it like 2015-12 because his goal, and this is an ambitious one, is they're going to go for a monthly release of FNA. And just reeling it back to FNA 1.0, this is a pretty huge deal because this means that the FNA toolchain is at a point where you can essentially drop in your XNA code, change the project file so that it actually builds using Mono. And you'll have a universal binary. So it'll run, it is the FAT binary containing the Windows version, the Mac version, and the Linux version. And it will just run. You drop it on your system, it'll figure out what it needs to do, and have at. you have your Xbox Live Arcade game that was previously dead because no one's buying shit on the 360 anymore. No one actually can buy a 360 and connected XBLA anymore. So it gives all these games that were actually quite good a new chance at life on the PC, on any PC.
I think XNA4 has actually been replaced with .NET as far as Microsoft is concerned for their game development platform. They just they don't want anything to do with it anymore. And Flibbity Jibbity Bibo has taken up the weight of the world here, going for 100% drop-in compliance. So they're not fixing anything that's like broken about it. They're just 100% what the XNA spec says they are implementing.
I don't know. I guess my only problem with this, Jordan, is the amount of money he's charging for this. I don't think it's fair. I mean, who can afford it?
Who can afford a free project? I don't know.
It's killer.
Actually, it's quite brilliant that Flibbit's been able to monetize this, because basically what he does is he says, I will take money to fix the issues with FNA to get you up and running, or I will charge you to just take your project, drop it into my fucking bash script that changes the project file, and return it to you as a fully running game on multi-platform.
He's gotten like some ports down to like 35 seconds.
Yeah, no, he's a bit of a mental guy. He's certainly taken the Ryan C. Gordon route. Actually, just look, if you want to have an entertaining and like educational experience, go find some conversations between Iculus and Flibbit, because it's just interesting about them bitching about the same shit that they're
working on. If you want to find just not entertaining but conversation, Flibbit and I talked about 2 years back when he was just getting started. It's kind of interesting to see how that's evolved. But
indeed. Oh, yes. So this is Dolphin. You might remember them from being able to play Smash Bros. On your Linux PC. It's great, and not necessarily Linux related, but due to some interesting discoveries in the Windows 8 and Windows 10 Bluetooth stack, on the Wii Motion Plus controller, this is the one with the IR sensor and the accelerometer built in, not the one that that just has the IR sensor that you plug the accelerometer into. They have Bluetooth speaker working, so while you're playing Twilight Princess, you can have, hey, this, come out of your Wiimote and go, holy shit, and throw it through your screen. Because that's really the only game that that utilizes it. And the Motion Plus integrated Wiimote is the only one this will actually work on. This may seem like a bit of a trivial feature, but for a project that's actively trying to fully emulate the complete Wii U, GameCube feature set, this is pretty important, because while there's only really 1 or 2 games that make use of this, it is an important feature. Mind you, they say outright in the article, this is derived from the Bluetooth stack on Windows 8 and Windows 10. So I don't know how this will actually translate to PC. And I haven't actually fucked around with taking my Wiimotes.
We don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to work out, but you got to give these a lot of credit. Usually pretty much anything they hit, it comes right over to Linux. So they're going to be busy sorting that. And the Bluetooth show title.
Bluetooth, little Bluetooth.
Yeah, the Bluetooth stack on Linux is nothing to turn your nose organ up at these days. So
yeah, the PlayStation 4 controller
definitely could. It'll be a brilliant thing. It's like every time you plug in a monitor via a DisplayPort or HDMI and realize it has speakers, and you go, the fuck was that? And I'm not saying that ever happened. Totally did happen. But let's get tuxy. After 15 years, Super Tux card. You don't know about it?
Not Super Tux cart, man. Super Tux.
No, man, it's Super Tux card.
Just Super Tux.
Read the notes. Empty said it's Super Tux card right there. No, this is kind of like the Mario 3D platformer that was developed while I was a teenager. It's a classic 2D jump and run side scroller game. They've added a couple of new things. Most importantly, I'm looking at SDL2. I did build it. It starts out with like the most hella cringe thing of like, check out my dance moves. It's like, oh, I can't even watch that. I was embarrassed for it. And I got to be honest, gentlemen, it does control like it's on ice.
So like the ice levels in Mario?
Well, the entire thing's on ice, so yeah.
Kind of makes sense. You are a penguin, right? So ice would kind of make sense there a little bit.
Wait a minute. Penguins don't fly!
they skate on the ice.
No, but you can check this nonsense out at supertuxcart. God damn, it is hard, empty. I just said it.
It is. It is. Your brain is just hardwired to Super Tux Kart.
Yeah, new entry to the LGC drinking game. Every time someone screws up to Super Tux and Super Tux Kart, take a shot. All right.
Check it out. I gave it a build. I mean, it works. You need a couple extra libraries, but for Arch users, it might confuse you, so just go ahead and pull it from your Aura, and you'll have a good time.
Yeah, it's in most Linux's repos. You can just yum install. Or
yeah, man, 15
install
years, and they're like, boom, update. And I was like, all right. I mean, I was literally just about to go into Unity.
Yeah,
last time
I mean, I guess the timer on one of these guys' cryopod opened up and be like, "What year is it? Oh God, I forgot to give it that change for Super Tux."
And he just sucked a BSD developer dry, made the update, and went back,
just bit his neck and like.
Comrades, it's very good.
Merry Christmas, comrades! It's OpenRA, the open source reimplementation of the Red Alert engine. Apparently, it runs Tiberian Dawn, Red Alert, and Dune 2000, all in the same engine.
Tiberian Sun empty. Come on.
That's not what Wikipedia told me. I don't know. Anyway, I suck at RTS, so this is probably not my cup of chainsaw, to quote Fan.
Yeah, but I mean, they're working hard on the Dune 2000 mod. They added some IRC support for that 1999 pro gamer feel. You gotta get that low latency chat going. You can just they actually say you can just connect to it via your favorite IRC pro client, but they built one into the game anyways.
Jay, baby, you still need the original art asses for this or not?
I believe you don't. You might. Because this is an entirely new game. This is inspired by I don't believe it is actually a engine reimplementation a la Open Morrowind or that one for that other game Daggerfall. There's the one. But I mean, it's there. It's open source. You can, if you like your Command and Conquer style RTSs, you can pick this up, download it, and chat with some folks on IRC. All three of them in that room.
Hey man, think about it like this. This is like OG hipster pixels, man. I mean, you don't even have to bring a PBR to the party, but
you can, and it's encouraged. But up next,
if you want. Up next, we have still no Linux version of Carmageddon, despite it being the first stretch goal on their page. They have the gall to include it in the winter sale and brag about 60 frames per second, but no Linux version. Where's our Linux version, Stainless?
It runs 60 frames a second on low. Yeah.
Well,
on the menus.
Didn't Total Sterling Bisquick or whatever his name was, he tried it like on a Titan, and he was getting like 45 frames a second. I mean, we're still working on it. What was their exact quote? It was so miserable, it pained me. I'm not even going to go back and look at it. They're still working on optimizing the Windows, but 60 frames per second. That's brilliant. This is the second winter sale that Stainless Games has participated in without delivering said Linux build since this game has launched. Not since it was kickstarted in 2012. Nay, with Linux as that first structure. Well, let's just take a walk down history lane. Steam for Linux beta arrived. SteamOS launched. Aerial controller, that's out. Steam Link. Oh, Street Fighter 5 announced for Linux. All this is taking place while they're still going.
Two games from like 1997 were ported to Linux in the interim.
You're like, listen, well, I mean, they had to port that Android port and like 2 back ports that was never in the original Kickstarter because they received like $3 million in additional funding and still cocked it up so bad. But I love how they're trying to spin it. I'm saying once the Windows version is optimized, then we'll start on the Linux port. And these guys don't even know how to Windows, bruh. Come on.
Refresh my memory. This is not a Unity game.
No. They said, fuck all that noise. We're making our own custom engine because we went
custom in-house engine. Yep.
Oh yeah, near in-house. It runs great on Mirror.
Absolutely targeted 30 FERPs. So what are we going to say to that, Jay, baby?
I have zero investment in this game whatsoever. It might as well be a case of spotted dick haggis for all I care.
Well,
I mean,
you know
for the amount of interest I have in purchasing this or even paying attention to it.
Let's talk about something you might want to invest in. That is from our fine friends at Double Fine Psychonauts 2. We just kind of wanted to bring.
He's pointing at me, Ven. I feel uncomfortable.
I don't know. I can't hear you over my throbbing erection. We are currently at 2.987220 wet, stinky million caches needed from a 3.300. 16 days left, 90% funded. Psychonauts 2, come on. Come on.
They're going to make it. There's no doubt at all. They're going to make it.
Empty.
Basically,
empty. I mean, this isn't Kickstarter, though, is it, bro?
No, this is the Fig.co, and this is really their first big project with big money. So we'll see how this works out. Maybe Kickstarter gets some competition here. But no matter what, and this is the important part, we get Psychonauts 2.
What are you talking about? Double Fine, you never know with those. They don't always make a Linux port.
Only when they feel like it, which is always.
Well, except for that one game where they published and didn't actually make it. And I mean, Space took a while, and then they snuck it into our Steam accounts for some reason that escapes me.
I don't speak for everyone, but I mean, I will completely always give Double Fine the benefit of the doubt because not necessarily right when we started, but just into the second year of doing this show, we got P-Man, he got in contact with their press or whatever, and anytime they have a new game, even if it's hella early, they're like, "Oh, here it is. Just don't talk about it until it's released, guys." Mm-hmm. Boom, every single time.
It's been shaky, and not every Double Fine game is really up to snuff, but they put in the effort, and the games actually run at a reasonable frame rate.
Well, J-Man, that's kind of what I'm saying, is even the games that we shit all over, they still will, hey guys, we respect that, don't worry about it, mm-hmm. And,
Yeah. And, I mean, going back to Psychonauts 2, like Empty said, they're going to make it. The internet had a collective hard-on for Psychonauts after that first Yahtzee review that basically sucked Tim Schafer off, and just Pedro levels of sucking dick, but I mean, Psychonauts was a fun game. Credit where credit is due, and I'm glad that we're going to get a sequel, and I'm super excited that it's coming to Linux.
The one thing Empty, riddle me this, the Fig.co, unlike Kickstarter with a lot of games,
well, they're going to curate.
All right, go ahead.
They're going to make sure that
I'm not going to finish the sentence I was in the middle of. Go ahead.
Well, they're going to make sure that only vetted publishers with, real actual games that they're going to deliver get on there.
Yeah, see, that sentence you so rudely interrupted was, where's the prototype? Kickstarter's getting kind of hardcore with games. It's you need to fucking deliver a prototype game or you can't do your thing.
I don't even know that
is curation going to fix that? I don't know. We'll find out. I mean, this is the first big project that we're seeing on Fig. Maybe we're going to see some more in the coming year. I mean, 2016 is right on the horizon. So I guess we'll see. I'm
sure. I think In Exile will probably be the next big one. Brian Fargo's on the chairman committee or whatever of Fig. So I think In Exile will
Wasteland 3, Pillars of Eternity 2, The Pillaring.
If I told you guys what I'm playing right now, you would literally just pink cloud.
Is it your penis, Ven? And on that bombshell, coming up next, use the Force, you fat fuck.
Hashtag me.
Unlimited processing power! Your puny quad core cannot handle the dark side of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. I'm getting tired of doing that impression. This is from Aspyr, originally from Obsidian, and spinning off of the BioWare franchise. This is on the Aurora engine. It's priced at $9.99. Knights of the Old Republic 2. What is it? 5 years after the events of the award-winning original, the Sith are on the verge of crushing the Old Republic, and a lone Jedi, you will follow the light side or succumb to the dark. Or as a lone Jedi, I believe. Whatever. This is KOTOR 2. It came out in 2004 originally. Got remade by Aspyr after they got the rights to these games. So, let's get on with the CHAIRQUISITION. The council has determined that 1 chair means that it's crap, 2 chairs means that it's meh, 3 chairs means that it's pretty good, and 4 chairs means that it was the chosen one. And we also got a categories of doom mixed with the working, shiny sounds, controls, and fun. So, Ven, will you make it so?
Hashtag Metachlorians. All right, mixed with the working over here on Ubuntu 1404 LTS. AMD 8150 octo-powered, 980 displayed SSD box of the business. Well, let's talk about how it mixed with the working on this system. Alt-Tab. Now, admittedly, I run separate X screens. You know, screen over here, screen over here, screen over here. Doesn't work. I mean, you can Alt-Tab. That's about it. I mean, as soon as you Alt-Tab, it's like, it'll just instantly regain focus. Not terribly happy with that. And switching between 1080 and 2160, because I do have a 4K UHD monitor, causes the game to revert to 720p, which is kind of where it starts off. And the mouse dribble mapping doesn't really work right there. I mean, you kind of got to guess at it or just use the keys on the board of keys, because, you know, the click targets, they're a bit off, causing you, well, I mean, all right, I guess you can use the controllers. Oh, controller, but we'll get into that in the control section. But how does it run, Ben? Well, young Padawan. About 60 FERPs at 1080p, and about 60 FERPs at 2160. I'm pretty happy with it, but the Alt-Tab thing of not being able to just like minimize it and get back to my business on the other things, wouldn't have to ding it a chair for that, Brad. I'm going to give it 3.
Yeah, on the Fedora 22 64-bit powered i7 6700K with the Nvidia GTX 980 on, I think they're still the latest Nvidia beta drivers. Yeah, I mean, the thing launches, it runs great. One thing that kind of bugged me was that it basically looks like it ran about as well as it does on my modern high-end PC as it did on my like Pentium 4 with like an Nvidia GeForce like 6 something, the one from like 2000. Actually, that would have been like the one from 2002. But I mean, it's an old game. It runs great. I mean, kudos to Aspire for getting it right as usual. So I'll give it 4 chairs. I didn't actually run into the Alt-Tab issue that Ben did. I was able to Alt-Tab perfectly fine, but I am on 2 discrete GPUs as opposed to 1 driving 3 monitors, so that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, on my Athlon X6 1100T with the Nvidia GTX 780 Ti, no problems whatsoever. And I bought this game directly from Aspire the day that it launched. It worked flawlessly. I can't ding it any chairs for that. It detected my controller. It did all of the resolutions. 4 chairs.
All right, so that's 3 chairs for makes with the working, but the spice must flow. Ven, what about shiny and sounds?
Make it so, number 1. Aspire originally ported this for mobile devices, and I'm betting it looks passable on a 5-inch display at 720 or 1080p. At 2160p on a 28-inch display, maybe not so much, Brad. I was thinking about using one of the retexture packs, but upgrading from Meh to Meh Plus is hardly worth the effort. And I know the game claims to have shadows. It claims to have shadows, but fuck and all if I can see them anywhere at any point. Now, that's the shinies. Well, alright, a little more on the shinies. 4K, really sharp. Textures, really meh. Alright, we're just going to put that in there. But when we come to the sounds, voice acting, it's absolutely passable for the time period that we're kind of dealing with at that point. And, you know, the background racket, it's very Star Wars-y. It's like, ooh, theatrical and all that shit. That's definitely a thing. I mean, it's not broken, but it's a bit fugly, it's a bit dated, and nothing really blows me away, so I'm going to give that 2 chairs.
Yeah, holy 2004 Batman. I mean, let's be real here. This is a game from 2004. That was not the best looking game on the market in 2004. Brought to modern systems, it's not going to be up to snuff with your Metros and your Borderlands and your whatnot. But I mean, it's passable. It gets the job done. The characters are emotive enough that you can sort of read what's going on their faces. As for the voice work, it is 2003, 2004. So you get your standard stable of like Cree Summer, Grey Delisle, all these folks. There's like 7 people who actually do all the voices for the entire game. And that's fine. They're all competent actors. They're all in a bunch of other things, and you wouldn't notice that unless you're crazy like me and actually look for these things. As for, I mean, like Ben said, it does sound like a Star Wars game. The sound design is very, very on point for that. It feels like an Old Republic game. But I mean, we haven't really explored that much of the Old Republic in terms of media, in terms of movies and comics and whatnot. So this is your primary exposure, and it feels like Star Wars-y. It's just, if you want to say this takes place 1,000 years before the actual Star Wars proper, I mean, it looks the same, but that's more of an internal flaw with Star Wars and its own timeline. Regardless, shiny and sounds, it gets the job done. Nothing special, especially from today's standards. I'll give it 2 chairs. Maybe 2.5, but it rounds down to 2.
Yeah, so the best thing that I can say about the graphics in this game is 60 frames per second at UHD 4K resolutions. That's nice. Admittedly, we are talking about PlayStation 2 level complexity graphics, so not a whole lot of polygons. Things are kind of edgy and bumpy, and the textures are not really very crisp and well scaled at all. There are some nice graphics. I remember in particular during the intro tutorial, there's a part where you take a droid outside on the outer hull of the spaceship, and I got out there and was like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty neat. There's some galaxies off in the distance and everything. It looked good. Not amazing, though. It does Star Wars. It looks like Star Wars. Star Wars from 2004. 2 chairs.
All right, that's 2 chairs for Shiny and Sounds. Up next is Control. Now let's dial in those chevrons, Ben.
Oh, man. Make it so, number 1. Aspire added...
You used that one already, you lazy fuck.
Hey, man, I'm going to roll with what I know. Aspire added control for your X-Clone controllers. They did. I'm guessing that was kind of a byproduct of initially doing the game on mobile. I'm like, we kind of got touch, but when I thought about that a bit more, I was like, man, this game probably would be genuinely fun with like touch controls. Using your X-Clone controller? Oh, just give it up, Brad. It's not going to fucking happen. That was like the equivalent of using, what is that app called? Keyboard to joy to key or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It is funky, and we're talking unwashed shirt that you wouldn't even wear to the grocery funky. And I completely noped over to the keyboard and dribble within the first 10 minutes because it's like, I can't do this one simple thing it's trying to tell me to do. And even when you do that, dribble look old school. I mean, it's brought back memories of Nope. Yeah, you want to do a mouse look? I'm surprised I didn't have to hold down number lock to mouse look. But fortunately, you can just right click and you can do a little mouse book. But A and D work the same, so get yourself some of that redundancy. The controls aren't broken, they're just dated, and genuinely just disappointed with the way it was mapped to an X-Clone controller. I didn't even bother to check if you could change anything because I looked at that nightmare field and was like, oh god, nope, that's not going to happen. Maybe Untouched a little bit better. Not busted, but only worth 2 chairs.
Oh yeah, the controls are exactly as I remember them. Clunky as balls. So you might actually remember that KOTOR 1, the game that this is ultimately based on, was originally released for the original Xbox. So there was controller support designed into it. However, it's clunky as balls. I gave it a shot with the Steam controller just because I had never actually tried to play this game with a controller before. Was KOTOR 1, KOTOR 2. Originally, I used keyboard and mouse. And that's where I stuck because, dear God, that controller mapping is just nightmare fuel. I understand what it's trying to do, and it's a reasonable approximation, but god damn, that's bad. The other thing with this game is the pathfinding and sort of how characters will position themselves once you give them commands or once their AI figures out where they need to go, and you will like
Imagine
run
doing
off
that with a controller though.
Oh yeah, no, it'd just be nightmare fuels. But you will like the second you let someone go, they'll just run off in some random direction. I remember I was actually trying to fight these guys while having the Zabrak tech specialist disable mines. And then I switch off my melee character, and she runs immediately into the minefields. I'm like, no. Hit pause, switch back to her, run away, give her a ranged weapon, and then let her continue shooting, because otherwise she's going to go kill herself to death. And this is fairly typical of how the game actually controls. Sometimes like you need line of sight in order to target someone, but sometimes that line of sight is skewed and it'll be on the screen, but the game will not determine that you don't have line of sight, and so you have to like go into the middle of their fucking attack radius, and then they'll start attacking you, but then you can target them. It's clunky. That's really the only way I can describe it. But I mean, I got used to it. I played this game like freaking 10 years ago. It wasn't that big a deal then. It wasn't that big a deal now. But for new people, it's certainly a giant hurdle to get over. So I'm going to give that 2 chairs.
Yeah. One of the big things that Aspyr hyped when they were first releasing the game was that they had added controller support. And, you know, not having any background in these type of games, I took a look at it and said, oh, this looks like a controller kind of game. Tried it out and encountered my first game-breaking bug about 10 minutes in when I couldn't plant an explosive on a door when I needed to. And of course, by that point, I had already gotten past the tutorial on which keyboard buttons made it do the things that I needed it to do. So I ended up restarting using the keyboard and the mouse. I had a better go that way, but even then, those camera controls are so awkward. Middle clicking the mouse to center it behind you is absolutely essential, and you're not going to have a good time no matter what you try to do. So 2 chairs.
All right, that gets 2 chairs for controls. And finally, we get to the frelling conclusion. Harvey, take us home.
Make it so, number 1. I've actually never played this game, so don't expect any cocaine-coated nostalgic glasses and or excuses. Let's start with combat. This is the first game in my fuck-mothering life that made me whisper, I wish it was 4X. Really? What the hell is this? 1X Lite? I don't know. Neither does this game. I mean, here's a combat scenario. Hey, that orb thingy keeps healing the bots, so I best target it and give it a case of the nopes. The game was like, nah, Brad, I'm gonna stay right fuck-mothering here, locked onto the droid until you are killed to death, me. You know what, game? Fuck that noise. I'm gonna run away with the quickness and use a med pack, only to find out it only works if you click A to use that button, because if you double click, not only will it take away one of your med packs, it will also not apply it to the actual health meter. That's a brilliant thing. At the end of the day, I mean, this game does suffer from that early aughts. #hipster. We want to tell a theatrical story, but the tech's not quite there syndrome. They're kind of like directing. It's like a proto-Indigo prophecy. Maybe with all that business. And you do have to think, maybe there's something to be said about a game that one of the workshop mods is to skip like the first hour and a half or 2 hours of the game, which is a glorified tutorial section that will just bore you to tears. I mean, if you're not into this type of stuff, because it is not action-oriented at all. It is based on point hits and all that, and there's not really a good way to structure it, at least for me when it comes into the Clombat, yes, clunky combat, Clombat, #show title. Even on sale, even at $2.99, it's like, yeah, pick it up if you want some of that nostalgia sauce. But if I'm sitting here having to say I'm 2 ons into this game and I'm still effectively in a glorified tutorial, maybe not so much, Brad. I didn't have a good time even at that price, but something we absolutely need to point out. Aspyr, you did an awesome awesome, fantastic job of porting this, and it makes me so happy at the end of the day, because if you go on the forums and you read about people trying to play this on the Windows right now, all they're talking about is, oh my god, it's so crashy and it's so horrible, buggy. Aspire pretty much noped all that issues. But that said, for the fun, nope, one chair.
So, I mean, I picked up this game like 11 years ago, back when I was really into this, which was the Star Wars D20 RPG. It's not the specific version this is based off of. This is Saga. This one's based off the revised one, which I knew fairly inside and out way back when. So, the problem with D20 and that sort of system when you extrapolate it into into a video game is that by its nature, it's really swingy. You got to stack modifiers, and it really just becomes all micromanaging gear. Ben's going to fall asleep. But MT's already heard my freaking rant. Really, the better system for Star Wars is Savage Worlds. Not going to get into that, because this isn't an RPG podcast. This is a Linux gaming podcast. So way back when, I played through about 3/4 of the game. I reassembled HK-47. I did all the random bits until I got to the point where you head to a force cave. And depending on how good or evil you were, you get a different result, and then you progress. And that determines the tone for the rest of the game. I was straddling the gray too much. So I ran into the game-breaking bug where neither option allows you to progress. And I had already made all the choices you could have made. So I couldn't proceed any further. But going back, I decided this time I'm just gonna go full fucking evil badass spam force lightning. What I found is you really, if you just have a reasonable conversation with NPCs, you will just randomly get light side points. You can wander around murdering people indiscriminately, and it's like, oh, well, you actually just killed a bunch of smugglers and kidnappers, so here have a bunch of light side points. And the only way to accrue dark side points is to just take the most the non-constructive conversation options to the point where you just tell everyone to go fuck themselves, and then your quest marker updates, which is useless because I need to know where these things are in order to, go accomplish these goals. I mean, my rose-tinted goggles have some scuff, but ultimately, I like this game. I liked it quite a bit. I've in the past 3 days, I've sunk 14 hours into it, so that I have trouble like hitting 5 hours in most games. So that should tell you something about what I feel about this game. Right now I'm at the part where you actually have to survive a melee combat against two people who are spec for melee and a ton of attacks when you are playing Atten, the guy who's played specifically for range combat. So you gotta save scum. There are some points like that are really fucking annoying. But beyond that, I feel the game is really fun. It's an engaging story. Once you get through the glorified tutorial level, which is a slog, after you get off Telos, the game actually opens up. You can go do whatever the fuck you want. You're about 5 hours in at that point. And it's actually fun. You go build your lightsaber, you be your badass Sith or your goody two-shoes Jedi. And you will, if you like RPGs and you like Star Wars, aside from some clunky mechanics and some early 2000s, like, screwiness that they really could have done away with when they fixed this game, I would give this 3 chairs. It's not 4. It's not perfect fun, but it's enjoyable and it tells a good story. So,
well, I'm going to start out by saying I really wanted to like this game. I love Star Wars. Chris Avallone, who was the lead designer on the game, is a great writer. He's done a bunch of work with like Fallout New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity. He's a old school Obsidian guy. Wasteland, yeah, exactly. And that gave me hope. It really did. But in typical Obsidian fashion, are you ready, guys? You got something you want to say? Or are you just messing with me? In typical Obsidian fashion, they've delivered an ambitious project and failed to polish it to acceptable levels. When this game was originally released, it was infamous for its game-breaking bugs and crashes and everything. And it seems like between Aspire and the community mod, they've sorted most of that stuff out. Is it fun though? I don't know. I didn't really have all that much fun. I'm gonna have to give it 2 chairs. I don't know. I think the 5-hour tutorial really brought me down.
For sure. So that's 2 chairs for fun. We tally all this mess up. Knights of the Old Republic 2, Star Wars, from Aspyr, Obsidian, and to a lesser extent BioWare gets 2 chairs. Final thoughts?
Not sure if want. Very valid. I mean, I think you pointed out a very good thing. And even when this game was released around 2003, 2004, it looked kind of like shit. I mean, compared to other titles. When that was the thing, a game was horribly broken. It was well known for being, correct me if I'm right, J-Man, unfinishable at some point.
Yeah, I can confirm that, yes.
Okay. And
he did confirm that during his review.
Things like that, man. And like Empty said, that tutorial, I'm 2 hours in, and it's like, no, but you got to get into the best part of the game. And I was like, how much time do you have? In what basement do you live where other people pay for your things? I actually have to work, he says ironically. But yeah, that's kind of a non-starter for me. And, you know, I love me some Star Wars. I mean, Captain Picard was one of my favorite characters. And
he's the best Transformer.
I mean, he's absolutely. One of the best, especially at Babylon 5, on that station. It was brilliant. So
I think the thing we all can agree on here, though, is that Aspyr did a good job. The controller support isn't perfect, but for the most part, they held their end.
They made it more stable than the Windows version.
Yes,
exactly.
Very, very, very true. And yeah, I will admit, and that was the thing that made me stop playing when this game originally came out. I just picked it up again because we were reviewing it. But yeah, when I got to the open room where you meet Atten in the tutorial, I'm like, oh fuck, I remember this. This was like 3 hours long. But because I knew where everything was, you can just sort of rush through it. Definitely a bit of a slog. I don't necessarily recommend using the Steam community stuff that lets you skip the intro because you miss some interesting story points. But beyond that, yeah, I mean, there's in terms of gameplay, you're not really missing much. And it does tend to suffer a lot from this RPG fetch quest of you're in this one map, you got to go talk to all the people, then you got to talk to them all again, and so on and so forth. But that is very much a classic RPG-ism. It's just more exacerbated because everything's chopped up into like its own little ecosystem loading screen barrier thing. But ultimately, like I said, it's a good story. If you like Star Wars and you're willing to put up with the foibles, you will have a good time. Coming up next, we cry about some spilled milk. And we explain why a busted, abandoned project from 2012 is still the premier audio solution under Linux.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for the hate mail. And the only reason I can say that is because I've heard P-Man say it so many damn times in editing. But we like to scream in your direction, and we love it when you scream back in ours. All you have to do, head over to LinuxGameCast.com, click that contact button, fill in the business, do that. I mean, anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be hate. You can send us some love every now and then, but be diligent with that. Not too much, or we'll get spoiled.
Just don't send us mild indifference. We can't stand that.
Yeah, fair enough. We can't tolerate that. If you're a game developer, and especially if you're doing some crowdfunding type business, if you do not have a prototype, do not bother. I know a lot of people go like, YOLO, I'm going to do it anyway. And we're just not going to talk about your shit. But coming up first this week from our third,
he's a Patreon.
What's he going to say?
And he says, since CryEngine has added Linux support, there are no Linux games made with that engine. Your opinions? Sincerely, RT. Now, I actually have a bit about this. I forgot to write it down. But you want to go first? Okay,
I'll give you my true fitty. Well, when it comes to the CryEngine, don't you cry tonight, since we were just on a fuck-mothering 90s binge in the middle of recording segments, but probably because they kind of missed wage payments and withheld bonuses for the Crytek UK staff members in 2014. And then you think, why is that a big deal, Finn? But you really got to think about it. Because you probably don't want to build on a closed-source engine that might possibly nope out of existence. And you got to mix that in with, a Windows-only editor, a subscription fee, and one of those, if you got to ask, pricing for full source access, you can't afford it type models. But that said, Deep Silver has promised a little bit of revolution, but that is like one of the only 2 games I could possibly find that will be using Don't Cry Tonight.
Mm-hmm. All right, so one of the things about CryEngine is that the latest version is that the OpenGL renderer came in fairly late in the life cycle. So that means that if anyone actually wants to go and port their CryEngine games, and there actually aren't that many companies that use CryEngine as a base engine because Unreal Engine 3 is a lot more standard. It's a lot easier to work with. CryEngine is primarily known for its jaw-dropping visuals, which, I mean, you can get away with in Unreal 3, certainly Unreal 4, sort of kind of in Unity if you know what you're doing. But, ultimately, you'd have to go back and, write a new renderer. You'd have to create an OpenGL code path for your CryEngine game. And for the Far Cry series, there isn't really enough, fanfare and drive to actually port the original games. And we're not going to see too many new games, CryEngine under Linux, mainly because most people would not use them. With Unreal 4 out there, I mean, it's open source. You get you pay 20% of gross revenue if you make over $5,000 or something like that, or 5% or whatever like that. That's a much better deal for you get the full package, middleware aside. So I mean, yes, you can bring up Star Citizen, but when was the last time you heard an update on that?
So empty. Let's just say if you happen to know that Star Citizen had an OpenGL renderer that's publicly available. Not publicly available. Let's say available. Would you play it?
I would. They've been talking about it, promising it, whatever, for a long time, and it hasn't shown up.
I know. We'll get Divinity Original Sin before that. Wait.
Yeah, but whatever. I think CryEngine really. We had peak CryEngine a few years ago with Crysis 2 and Crysis 3, and the days of but will it run Crysis are gone. I think Unreal Engine 4 is just they've stole the thunder, and it's going to be an uphill battle for Crytek to get it back.
Well, don't sound so
honestly,
dumb.
I just want Far Cry Blood Dragon on Linux because that is Kung Fury, the game.
We need to talk about Ski.
Yes, starring Mark Hamill.
And George writes, I've heard that you want to ditch Skype. Have you guys tried Talks yet? Talks.chat, I recommend you Talks client. That is one of the ones that we used. We've used everything. We have genuinely, we are on a quest to find something to replace the black box that is Skype. I mean, seriously, it is a bit depressing that a closed source black box last updated in 2012 for Linux still, to this day, wins the quality contest for audio, J-Baby.
It's true. I mean, Ven and I and Pedro have spent countless hours. Hey, does it work? Let me futz with this. Does it work? Let me futz with this. Does it work? Let me futz with this. So much time wasted. I could have spent that doing something productive, like playing Bound by Flame or masturbating or plotting to assassinate the NSA. Anyways, unfortunately, that's the break. And a lot of podcasts have actually realized that Skype is the best option for anything because number one, it's cross-platform. Number two, the magical black box VoIP algorithm actually produces reasonable sound quality that you can use in a podcast of such quality that if Ven plays us back a recording of a conversation that we've had, it's almost impossible to tell the difference between what he's saying and what the recording is repeating. So
I don't know.
Make of that what you will.
Talks. I think it might be a good start. It's got a little way to go.
It's got the right idea. It looked like they were using Opus for their audio codec, that's the latest and cutting edge open source audio codecs. But, if the black box has that special combination of fairy dust and gasoline that makes the audio truly sparkle, what can you do? I don't know.
And on that sparkling bombshell, let's cue the music, because you can always find us around 9:30 Eastern Standard Moon Time. I'm Vin Stone, cleverly disguised on the Twitters, at Finstone plus Vinstone on the G pluses.
And when I'm not drowning in pools of my own sick, you can find me at Twitter on Twitter at The Burning Fool, or on Google Plus at plus Jordan Spung.
And I am not Pedro Mateus, but Mike Tehan, who you cannot find on Twitter at The Real Leprechaun, but you can find on G Plus at plus Mike Tehan.
And let's just all remember that Pedro did show up last week, but this week that he had to go out and visit his parents, but empty Mike Tehan went to visit his parents and brought his microphone. And
definitely parents' house.
But you know what the real dirty secret is? Ven and I are Pedro's parents.
Poor Nori.
Someday she'll learn the disturbing
She's
truth.
in on it. Let's be honest, she's in on this too.
She is.